Stay tuned. We watched this bull go bed down after thrashing in the wallow, and the hunt was on. We made a great play on these elk. However, when we got within about 90 yards, the elk blew out. We kept on going and stalking as close as we could, and we ran into one of the bulls right inside the timber. That's when you see me sitting down. The bull was at about 51 yards and was standing in the trees. If he wouldn't have been standing in the trees, I would have been able to take the shot, no problem. But that's how hunting goes. We elected to sit by a big pond that was down there in the bottom of this ravine because we decided that it was in the middle of the day and why not sit in a place where elk are likely to be. So we spent the next several hours sitting by the pond, relaxing, recuperating, and hoping on the giant screaming sixer to come down and take a drink. While we were sitting there, we saw all kinds of crazy things.
So, I know you can't really see it, but
who are you talking to?
That right there in between these two trees is actually a wolf. He is sitting there watching those ducks. It's kind of crazy.
We saw some elk and wolves. That's all I'm gonna say. And we go hunting. We're going hunting right now. I saw some two ponds and I see some ducks from here. So I know I just walk a long ways away. I saw some elk. How long is this going to take?
As long as you want it to. What else did we see?
Wolves. We probably saw their butt. Did we see them? We saw some wolves, we saw some horses, we saw some people riding some horses. They're riding their horses this way. They keep going back and forth. That's pretty cool, and I know we just walk a long ways away.
When we were walking back up out of the bottom, we saw some grizzly bears, a sow and two cubs. So I elected to camp in an unlikely spot to help us both stay safe. The next morning, we woke up to a sea of fog, and the hunt was on. How you doing? You ready to shoot this elk? They're right up here. We began making a play on this bull, and it was crazy. This screaming sixer was chasing his cows and doing all kinds of things, but we had several issues. The fog was rolling in, and it was super hard to see. We finally got stalked in on these elk, and due to the fog, they looked like they were forever away. After I blew the elk out of the country, come to find out they were only about 40 yards away. But our two main issues in that situation were, one, the rangefinder wouldn't work, and since they looked like they were 80 yards away, I thought I needed to get closer. And number two, the bull was actually on the opposite side of the herd, where we couldn't even see him. So all we could see was cows and calves, and we didn't really have any other play to do other than try to get closer. And as soon as we tried that, the elk had had enough, and they were gone. You know, my son and I just had an awesome trip. We saw all kinds of things. We saw wolves, we saw grizzly bears, and everything else you could probably imagine. We saw it on this trip. There's nothing like looking over and seeing the eyes on your 4-year-old light up when they hear that bugle in the morning or in the evening. There's nothing like it. So I'm just telling you, it's worth it to take your kids. It's worth it for them to be able to enjoy it. This was the first time I had been to this area, and I obviously had my son with me. I had plans to go back later on in the season, which I got to do. So stay tuned, keep watching, and see how the rest of my season ended up.
The first night I was back by myself, I set up camp and started to glass. I didn't see much the first night. However, the next morning I woke up to a grizzly bear about 250 yards from camp. I started to glass and I found some elk that I was really interested in, and the hunt was on. Before I knew it, there was elk all around me. That's why I couldn't pan, because when this cow moved out of frame on the right, she was only about 6 yards away. All I could think was, be a rock. Solid like a rock, steady like a rock, gray like a rock, and no movement like a rock. After about 5 minutes, my legs began falling asleep, my vision went cross-eyed, and I all but passed out.
Oh, for some reason I'm seeing double and I don't know why.
The position I was sitting in was no longer allowing circulation through my body. Finally, the cows moved off, giving me the chance to move into a better position to take a shot. there you have it. I choked. I spent almost 5 hours getting into position on these elk. I got within about 30 to 35 yards. Target panic kicked in, and I completely missed. I airballed that shot. No excuses. It's all on me. And on top of it all, I had the wrong lens on my camera, so it's even hard to see the elk. But if you look carefully, you can see my arrow streak off through the sunset like a silver bullet.
Well, I just airballed one over his back, hardcore. I can't believe I just did that. 30 yards. 30 yards. And I just jerked it like you would not believe. I can't believe that just happened. 30 yards. Hey guys, what's happening? Day 2, Wyoming Elk Hunt. Second trip here. Yesterday was mostly just a hike in. I put one half-ass stalk on an elk. And I got over there and they were just gone yesterday evening. So I woke up this morning and saw a herd bull with about, 11, 15 cows, something like that. Big bull, 350s. And packed up camp and walked, another 2 miles or so over to where I saw him. Set camp back up. This hill, you can kind of see the rocks. I'm literally camped on a cliff and put like a 3-mile stalk on him, no shit. And it took me, 3 hours. So I walked all the way down to the bottom of this behind me. Well, I walked actually all the way up to the top first, found him, then walked all the way down to the bottom so I could get the wind right and get out of their sight. Got all the way up to him within 100 yards and ran out of cover. He was not responsive to a bull calling cow bugle. It probably needed to be a little closer to his cows though, so nothing against the bugle or anything. I think it works great. Just had to be a little closer in this situation. So I dropped halfway back down the mountain, wrapped all the way around the entire top, and beat them to a saddle on the other side. And when I got to the saddle, they were literally just coming through it. I got a bunch of it on film. And the cows all started funneling by me, and they pinned me down. And they were like 15 yards away. And so I just sat there. I obviously didn't move the camera, didn't move anything. I just sat there with an arrow nocked. And he went by at about 65 yards and went over and stood up on the hill. Then all the cows fed by out of sight. And he came back down the hill and got out of sight. So I moved back over. And the cows were all feeding right by me at like 30 yards. And so I just knocked an arrow. I still had my arrow knocked, and I just sat there and waited. And here he comes. So I clipped my release, drew back, and stopped him, and then flinched. And in flinching, my bow cammed over a little bit. So as I went to go pull back to full draw again, I punched the trigger, sent an arrow bouncing off the rocks at his feet. So elk 1, Zach 0. Yay me. 30 yards. What the hell? That's why it's called hunting, I guess. I'll kill him. tuned for tomorrow's recap. Alright. So these elk are all the way up in the very top of this basin. That is, without a doubt, the bull that I missed yesterday. Yay me. Sorry for a shaky video camera. It's through the spotter. But there he is again. And I'm going to walk all the way down this, all the way up that, all the way up that ridge, around that giant freaking mountain. And they are right, see that little knob right there? They're in that yellow right below that knob. That's where they are. Isn't that just awesome?
On my way, put a stock on that first bull. I ran into two other bulls. One was about a 300 class. The other was about a 370 class bull. I got within 60 yards to the big bull, and things just didn't pan out. So I decided to set up camp, take my time, and put on a stock on that first bull that I saw.
Oh my god, I didn't press record. So we're starting this shit all over again. So, day 2 of actual hunting recap. As you can tell, it's slightly windy. But, it's just lovely out there. So I had about a 300-inch bull at about 70 yards. I stumbled upon him though. I walked over a knoll and he was standing there, so he just walked away. Then I heard a bull bugle, so I kind of got into stock mode and came around and saw antlers, so I got all ready. And it was like a 370 to 380 bull. He was huge, and he was watching his cow. So I leaned around the rock, and I got a range and moved my sight. And I was just about ready to lean out around the rock at full draw, and that cow walked down the hill and he followed her. He just didn't stay there long enough. And then I put a stock on the exact same bull that I missed yesterday and blew the stock. I don't know whether a cow smelled me or they saw me move or what happened, but I blew the stock. So I guess that makes it elk 4, Zach 0. Stay tuned for day 3 recap.
The next morning, the tent slapping my face startled me awake. All I could hear was the deafening howl of the wind whipping through the high mountain basin, and I instantly understood the meaning of gale force winds. As I rolled over, I began to realize why I was being flogged by my tent. The wind had snapped the draw cords on the tent, allowing it to flap freely and lay flat. I wiggled my way out of my sleeping bag and watched as the breath coming out of my mouth resembled a smokestack. It was colder than it had been any of the other mornings on the September hunt, enticing me to quickly put my clothes on. I poked my head out of what was left of my tent and was met with a sea of fog, the kind of fog that makes you wonder what is 15 feet in front of you. I packed up my camp, put on my rain gear and gators, and did the only thing you can do in fog, and waited for the bugles to begin. As the fog lifted, I was met with one of the most beautiful sunrises I have ever seen in my life. Double rainbows, you name it, it happened. And then the fog socked back in, and I was left with seeing nothing once again.
Well, as you can see,
The next day it rained and sleeted all day, so I took the opportunity to recuperate. I ate a ton of food, drank warm liquids, relaxed a little bit, and tried to rest up. Later on in the day, I made my way up to a higher vantage point in hopes that the fog would lift so that I could find some elk. I started looking around, and I finally found some elk that I was interested in.
Hey, what's happening, guys? This is day 4 of the elk hunt, not including the first day when I walked in. It was foggy almost all day. Rainy, snowy, so I didn't put a stock on anything, or I finally found 3, well, I guess you call it 2 herds of elk tonight, and I have a plan to go hunt them tomorrow. Had a little fire to dry some clothes out, and my sleeping bag was in the stuff sack, so it's in a, looks like a cylinder, and it rolled out of the tent and into the fire, so it melted my sleeping bag and my stuff sack. And just when I thought it was going to be a beautiful day tomorrow, because I could see the stars, it started pouring rain. So we'll just see how tomorrow goes. I guess thank God for Sitka and rain gear, because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be out here. Simple as that. So anyways, the score is still elk 5, Zach 0. We'll see what tomorrow brings.
I woke up the next morning to 8 to 10 inches of the snow, and it literally blew my mind. I started to follow the plan and make my way over to where I last saw the elk from the night before. I blew some elk out, but I continued my trip. I ended up having to cross a stream, walk through a ton of black timber, and all that jazz, and I got all the way over there, and I didn't see a single elk. So I turned around and started working my way back out of there and wanted to go to a new area.
All right, so day 6 breakdown. I forgot to do it. See that right there? Let's see, I woke up right there in about 6 inches of snow yesterday morning. I walked all the way, down this, and then I got over right next to this burn where I'd seen a great big bull the night before. They weren't there. So then I walked all the way down this ridge here, the yellow, down to the very bottom of this, all the way up out of it, and then ended up camping over there for the night. On the way up out of that bottom, I had a raghorn at like 35 yards. I was walking up and he was feeding in front of me, so it was more luck than anything. So I snuck a little closer, got to about, 80 yards. And he turned and started walking, like kind of paralleling, but closing the distance. So I just got all ready, and when I turned, my camera was rolling, and when I turned, my arrow hit the camera, and he saw that and took off, stopped at 60 yards. So I ranged him, moved my sight, hit full draw, and was just settling the pin, and he took off. I have like 4 more days of my hunt, 5 more, something like that. So I've kind of transitioned from trophy hunting to meat hunting because I need to fill the freezer, right? So I guess that makes the score elk 6, Zach 0. So we're having a good time. We really are. It's nice being down here where it's warm and not up there. Thank God for Sitka though. I had my rain gear on and my gators on and heavy duty gloves, and I was plenty warm, but it still just isn't that much fun. So Anyways, stay tuned for day 6 recap. Or day 7 recap, my bad.
I ended up spending the rest of my trip hunting deer, and let me tell you what, I had an awesome time. I came out of those mountains with my biggest buck to date. I'll be putting that YouTube video up as well, so make sure you check it out. I had a ton of fun this elk season, even though I did a freezer with an elk. You know what? That's why it's called hunting and not killing. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an awesome 2016 season as well.